complain about how much they're being paid. You guys complain. We complain in the West because, yes, to our middle-class comfy lives, that seems ridiculous. But that's because you've never lived in real poverty. Nobody in England has lived in real poverty the way the Chinese and the Africans and the Indonesians live. When you go to a place, and it's interesting, because take Korea. Korea is an interesting case study, right? You've got North Korea and South Korea. 50, 60, 70 years ago, South Korea was as poor as North Korea. They were both dirt poor. And then South Korea instituted some economic freedom. And it made it possible for people to go and work for $1 a day, for $2 a day. And they developed skills, and they increased their productivity. And they started building more stuff. And capital came in and increased their productivity even more. And suddenly, and you go to Seoul today, and they're as rich as you are. But they, in 70 years they did, or 60 years, they did what you've done in hundreds of years. How did they do it? Because of the ability to slowly ratchet up. Now, if you demand that they skip and get to your standard of living like that, then they will stay poor forever. And that's what you're condemning them to. You're condemning them to eternal poverty. A kid who is getting $1 or $2 a day, his alternative is to die in the fields. You're doing him a favor by giving him the $2 a day. And he's producing something, and he's learning a skill at the same time. And one day he'll run the factory. But if you demand that he gets paid full, he'll never have the job, he'll never have the factory, and he'll stay poor for the rest of his life. And all you have to do to see this in real action is go to Asia and see how they live under poverty, and see how these countries are growing rich. And do you know that over the last 30 years, now this is not my statistic, this is the United Nations, you can look it up online, right? Over the last 30 years, 1 billion, that's with a B, people have come out of poverty in Asia. Why? Because of capitalism, not because of foreign aid. Foreign aid doesn't help anybody, except the dictators who put them in the Swiss bank accounts. What helps poor countries is freedom. You give them the rule of law. You give them property rights. If you're interested in property rights and how it helps poor people, read Capital Ideas by Hernando de Soto, a Peruvian economist, a brilliant economist. You give them property, you give them capital, you give them a job. That's how you create wealth. Not by giving them handouts. So 1 billion people have come out of poverty. Now, I know some people have said, all you guys care about is the rich. Somebody said, what you care about is the rich deserve it. You know what? I don't care about the rich. They don't need taking care of, right? They're doing great. I care about the poor. I care about the poor. And the only system in human history, to help the poor, to help ambitious poor people rise out of poverty and become rich, has been capitalism. Free markets are the only cure for poverty. The only way in which you become rich so you don't have to have poor people is through capitalism. That's how this country became rich. That's how America became rich. That's how Hong Kong became rich. That's how South Korea became rich. There's no other way to do it. When we tried socialism, we get poverty. We get a return, a deterioration. We get a destruction of wealth, not a creation of wealth. So you want people to, you care about the poor and the middle class? I also care about the rich, because I think that they are villainized for, which is unbelievably unjust. But I care about young people who I want to maximize their opportunities. And I know that the only way to maximize people's opportunities is to give economic freedom to the world. And that should be the goal. And that means not sitting here and judging how much a laborer makes in Indonesia. As long, yeah, now if they're chained, if they're whipped, slavery is evil. Any kind of slavery is evil. But what's happening in the freer countries, that's not slavery. That's choices that people are making to make their lives better. You don't like it, but it's their lives, not yours. I have to stop, so sorry guys, I'd go on all night.
Thanks for your question. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. My name's Owen Collier, and first of all, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. I'm not with the undergraduate, I'm the co-host of the evening. I represent the Economic Society, and I want to say welcome you all here. I want to welcome back Dr. Brooke. It gives us great pleasure to welcome you back here, and I'm glad that we left such an impression that you felt you could come back. And before I hand over to Joe, I just want to say what a great honour it is really for me to be, and my society to be invited to co-host tonight's event. Because I think this guest lecture really is a way for the economists in Exeter and indeed all of you to just hear an interesting point of view on a very topical subject. And so I hope you get a lot out of tonight's event and tonight's talk, of which Joe is now going to tell you some more. But as I say, it's on a subject that I know my society began our discussion session series at the beginning of the year talking about. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot more about it and add to the mosaic of opinions that I'm sure we all have anyway. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Joe now, who's going to tell you a bit more about tonight's event.
So thank you all for coming down this evening and joining the Undergraduate Live and Economic Society and hosting this event. My name's Joe. I'm the head of talks for the Undergraduate Live this year. We'll be bringing you a series of talks and interdisciplinary discussions over the course of this year. A few weeks ago, we brought in former Mars One candidate and astrophysicist Joseph Roche, and in 2016, we'll be playing host to Adrian Sanders, a former Liberal Democrat MP of 18 years, Ellen Half-Davis, an international rugby player, rower and biochemist, and children's author at our symposium in March. So to keep up with all our goings-on, I suggest you like both our Facebook pages. Before we begin, though, I'd like to introduce our editor for this year, Rosie Lenny, who's going to tell you a few things about the journal this year.
Hi, I'm Rosie, I'm the editor-in-chief of The Undergraduate. If you haven't been either hijacked by our committee on the way in or picked up on it before, please I encourage you to look at our last issue. Also, we are currently in the process of doing call for submissions for our January edition. So if you felt like writing for us, then please do check our website, submission guidelines are on there. We're also running a competition this term. There's a chance to win a £30 cash prize. And all you have to do is write 500 words on why X, whatever you believe X is the most powerful tool to change the world. And finally, after the 11th of December, do look out for open positions on our committee, which will be advertised on our website and on the Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So today, Dr. Brooke will be discussing some themes from his upcoming book, Equal is Unfair, The Inequality Advantage, is up there. Should be on the shelves around, is it March 29th? March 29th. Dr. Brooke is an author, former academic at Santa Clara University and executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute, a laissez-faire think tank promoting the objectivist ideals of Ayn Rand. The talk should run for around half an hour, with another half an hour for questions. And feel free to stick around afterwards, we'll be serving food and crudités and such. And so, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Aaron Brooke. Thank you.
So thank you for inviting me back. Thank you to the Undercurrent, and thank you to the Economics Club of Exeter, and thank you all for coming. And I'm just curious, how many of you were here last year? All right, you came back, and we got some fresh blood. That's good.
put onto the table, particularly in looking at a national men's health policy, because of these kind of issues.
Men in today's society have been sold this myth, so nobody why dog.
So here we are.
Hello guys and gals, Mike here once again from Games for Charities, and tonight we're in World of Warships and I am going to be showing you guys how to fire. I'm actually going to give you guys a few other tips with this game and using ships. First thing is going to be make sure you know where the guns are located on your ship. Currently in a New York Tier 5 battleship, as you can see, I don't have guns on both sides of the ship like with many cruisers. So you want to pick which side you're going to be aiming for early in the game and start aiming for it and start turning in that direction when the time is right. If you don't do this, then you go to turn back, it's going to take forever for those guns to swing around to be facing the way you want them. That's the first thing. The next thing we're going to teach you is if you hold Alt, and actually I'll show you a ship here that doesn't have that has guns on both sides. So as you can see here in the Omaha, which is a Tier 5 cruiser, look at the mini-map down there. You have guns on both sides of the ship. So it's a lot easier just turning and firing back and forth. Battleships are much slower, so they turn slower. It's not as big of a deal, but it can be, if that makes any sense at all. You get too close, you're kind of screwed when stuff gets up on you. The main focus of the battleship is to stay out of the range, so that's why I say that. Anyways, I hope this helps you guys. Back to the battleship. So now if you hold Alt here while zoomed in, you'll notice two numbers. One on the left, which is 10.96 S, that is 10.96 seconds away, so about 11 seconds away. The other number is on the right, which is about 18 km. That's kilometers. So when you're aiming, this one's 10 away. So what you want to do is you want to see how there's a little hash marks there? You want to count out 10 for stuff that is slow. Like battleships, those are going to be 10. Carriers, 10 for 10. It's 1 to 1. If you have something fast moving, like a cruiser or destroyer, lots of times, if they're going full speed, it's going to be
foundered.
Off to a great start.